I know sometimes people say they're a lion, but you can't be a lion if you don't understand the rules of the jungle.
Keep your commitment never to go back to the life that you once lived. Keep your commitment to creating wealth for yourself, to taking care of you.
We're not live or anything like that. So
Yeah, that's fine.
if you say that needs to be edited, I will. Otherwise, usually I just let it go raw and whatever. I don't get upset over blunders and stuff. But I guess the initial process is, have you done podcasts before with anyone?
Yeah, nothing too serious, I guess, but I've done stuff like this before, yeah.
I guess the Peak Archery project is the goal of the project is to highlight and in some ways, I guess, expose success stories, but how they became a success story. And the heart, I pride myself on not just talking about the glorious stuff. The stuff that people need to hear, but they don't necessarily want to hear, or they know and they refuse to admit that they're, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I shot, as someone, I've got a pretty vast experience in all three disciplines, Olympic, compound, but Barebow has definitely been my niche in the world.
Yeah.
That being the Barebow project. I absolutely love Barebow. I love Olympic recurve, compound so. I love compound too, but just for 3D. But I will say that like Olympic recurve, as far as resources, and having access to information, it's just not there out there. Like it, in my opinion, that's just my opinion. So, allowing someone like you to, I want to know your journey. We'll talk about that. Who is Crispin Duenas and where did you start? But then let's dive into like some of the key components that have gotten you to where you are in your career.
Yeah.
And we'll go that route first, and then we'll see how long or where that takes us. If we got to do part two, we do a part two. It's no big deal.
Okay.
Do you wear a coach hat at all or often at all?
I have one athlete who I coach on a regular basis. But because I've been like pretty much a full-time athlete up until a couple of years ago, and I'm still trying to balance everything. I've only taken on one. I think that's about all I can handle.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good project to be able to do. And I think it gives me a good little insight into like as me as an athlete and then me as a coach, what can I learn from both sides and apply to the other side? I think it's a really cool thing. But I think if I had too many people to coach or a lot more people to coach, I think that would just take it, like eat out of my athlete part. But I think that like having the one-on-one is actually really, really advantageous.
You are 100% correct because I can attest to that.
Yeah.
100%. Like, yeah. 100%. Well, that's a whole other topic and a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
We'll get into that some other time. But anyways, you ready to just roll?
Yeah, for sure. I was actually just going to
impromptu.
open up my front door so I got a little bit more light because
Okay, that's fine.
just in case. But I'll be like 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit better sunlight coming in.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you were fine before. It's not the end of the world. People, I have found, I started doing the video podcasts shortly after I started the Barebow project because, you know John Demmer. He's
I don't personally talk to him, but obviously everybody knows him.
He's probably one of my best archery friends, and I would say that like we just the antics and the back and forth and like seeing the emotional side or like the actual physical emotional side of the discussions and like it means something to people. People enjoy that. There's no question. So that's why I do the videos. Some people like them, some people don't. It is what it is. But anyways, all right, we're gonna get going. Welcome back to the Peak Archery Project. I am here. Well, this is going to be a dually posted podcast. This is the Peak Archery Project and the Barebow Project are combining for this one because I am here with Canadian national team member, Olympian Crispin Duenas. Welcome to all of the projects, I should say. I reached out to Crispin because we have your name has come up in the Barebow circles as far as some shooting technique and stuff in my life. Many times we talk about your deep hook, just overall alignment, stuff like that. Like you got Barebow written all over you, whether you know that or not.
Oh, all right. I
But
feel some recruiting coming
and I was
along.
like, yeah, but we also there's some parallel stuff. Like I know you're heavy in the fitness and some other things, and I wanted to look for some ways to get some more Olympic recurve information out there, and you are on the priority list of people that I would like to talk to.
Well,
So,
thank you.
absolutely, man. So, sir, let's just get into the kind of the beginning of where did Crispin Duenas come from? How did you come to find archery, and what has that journey look like?
So I came into archery by complete fluke. It was a complete accident. I just happened to mention archery to my grade 8 teacher, and he just so happened to be a member of an archery club. And so he just like pulled open a drawer in his desk and he was like, here, try the Archers of Caledon. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, that's pretty cool. So me being the 13-year-old or whatever you are in grade 8, asked my parents if we could go out and look at the Archers of Caledon, and they had these Saturday morning lessons, and that's where I started. And I actually started as a compounder, because I think compound was just an easier bow to get into. And obviously, as a teenage boy, you're like, oh my god, that bow looks so cool. So I had this magnesium risered Hoyt compound from back in like 1999 or whatnot. It was probably a mid-90s bow. Heavy as who knows, but who cares? I didn't even care. It was a bow. It was great. And I shot it, and I actually I shot something called the Ontario Summer Games, which is my province's like summer games, and it's a multi-sport event and everything, but you have to be under the age of 21, I think, to compete, or under the age of 18. I don't remember. But I competed in that, got silver there, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. I love this multi-sport thing. I love like seeing other athletes here, other disciplines and everything. And like, is there a bigger version of this? Is there a higher level? And one person's like, yeah, the Olympics. And I was like, oh, all right, cool.
Wow.
I want to try. I want to try for that. And then he was like, oh, but you're holding the wrong bow. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, they don't have compound in the Olympics. Well, as of yet, we'll see. But at the time, this is back in 2000. That's when my Olympic flame got lit, right? I was like, oh my god, I want to do this at the biggest level possible. And so I told my parents I had the wrong bow, and said I need to get an Olympic recurve. And so they said, well, let's not drop your compound stuff just yet, because that's what you know and that's what you were doing okay with. Let's try to get like a really beginner recurve for you, and you can shoot your compound as well. So I was like, okay, that's good. And so back then I actually had no coach. I had come out of the lessons at the local club, was just doing everything myself. YouTube wasn't a thing back then, so I was just trying to see who the big guys were on the field and just try to like mimic what they were doing and ask around and stuff like that. I was probably the annoying kid that everybody was like, oh, he's here again. But I was able to get an Olympic recurve, thankfully, from my parents. And we used to shoot the 1440 round, the FIDA round. Yeah. And we used to do a double FIDA every weekend at the same club. And so I would actually shoot the FIDA with my compound. And then once the compound was done, I would, like after we finished off with 30, scores were tabulated and handed in. After 30 meters was done, I would crack out my Olympic recurve and start shooting that just at 18 meters, just to, I think I was there at the club. I was present. Let's go shooting, right? And so I was shooting, and then at that time, this strange old lady came up and started looking at me and looking at different angles on me and everything. And she called a friend over, and she said something to that friend, and they looked and they were like, yeah, like, and they started nodding. And I was like, this is really strange. I've never had this happen to me before. And she came up to me and she was like, hey, what's your name? And I said, oh, my name's Crispin. She's like, oh, okay. Who's your coach? And I said, I don't have one. And she said, well, can I coach you? And I was like, hey, like if somebody's given like advice and stuff, like why not, right? So she was like, okay, let's get together, and I'd like to work on your form, because you've got some really good alignment, and we like I think we can work on that, and we can make that work really, really well. But I'm going to be away for the next couple of weeks, out in Sydney, Australia. But when I get back, I'll give you a shout. And then she handed me her card, and it said the Olympic coach on it, Joe
Oh,
McDonald.
wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like talk about luck yet again. So she had found me like a week or two before she left for Sydney. So yeah,
Wow.
complete luck in my the beginnings of my archery. And since she had so many connections and everything, she knew how to train somebody to get to the Olympics, instill in them the work ethic that it takes to be like to get to where I am now. And
Mhm.
so yeah, that's how it all kind of started.
So I guess and that's a very familiar journey for a lot of youth archers, but the percentage of the ones that make it to the Olympics is very
Yeah.
small.
Yes.
And while this is unscripted, I'm curious what the relationship is to those numbers. Like, what is the thing that's holding so many archers back? It's not the volume of people, because Olympic recurve in the United States is definitely a smaller number of shooters than it
Yeah.
is in many other countries. But the United States, we're extremists. We got Barebow's growing like wildfire. Compound is huge, and if Compound does sink its teeth into 2028 Olympics,
Mhm.
that's going to be huge.
Yeah.
But what what's what do you think, or what are some things that you've seen maybe is the better way to frame the question? What is something that's holding people back? Is it just access to information, access to people? What do
Yeah,
you think?
that's a really good question. I think one thing that's holding a lot of people back is the and like I'm trying not to stereotype at all. I'm just
Sure.
talking from my experience. The main question that I get asked on a lot of whenever I go down to the States, for example, is what form are you shooting? And I'm like, my form.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they say, well, you're not doing the this method, you're not doing that method, you're just
yeah.
what method is this? And I was like, it's my own. It's something that I've developed over, well, my gosh, 23 years of shooting now,
Mhm.
to amount to what I have as my shot right now. So I think a limiting factor is a lot of people try to fit themselves into this puzzle piece of what form should be.
I love it.
Like I need to shoot this type of form in order to be successful, and then if it doesn't work, I'm going to keep on trying until I get it, until I fit into this like mold of what that form should be. Granted, a lot of people do fit into those molds. There's some people who just don't. It's all biomechanics. Like my radius and ulna are not going to be the exact same length as somebody else who's shooting on the line next to me, and that's going to contribute to like where your elbow position is
Sure.
once you're at full draw. So um, I think the thing that made me a little bit more successful a lot quicker is I was like just a sponge. I wanted to take in as much information as possible, and then figure out what did work for me and what didn't work for me, and make sure I was doing it safely as well.
Mhm.
Because in like in the 23 years that I've been shooting, I've like knock on wood never had any injuries from archery.
Yeah.
So I think that that's been a big contributor to my success and my longevity in the sport as well, is just trying to get as much information as possible, parse through everything, disregard anything that does not make sense to me or just doesn't work, and
Mhm.
um, work on the things that do make sense and that I agree with. So I think that's one thing that's holding people back. Another thing is like just knowledge of recurve in itself, like how to properly tune a bow, how to um, properly set up a bow, how to like the different ways of gripping the string. You were talking about deep hook before, and there's so many different schools of thought on the hooking of the string. And again, I'm not saying that everybody should have a deep hook, but I think everybody should at least try it. But
I
like
love it, man. I love it. You are preaching to the choir, but that's the Barebow coach and me talking. We'll cover that some other time, or maybe at the end.
we could do a
But no,
part two. I don't
access to
mind at all.
information. What's that?
We could do a part two. I'm
We
okay with
we may
that.
have to. We may have to. I can see it already. No, I think I think you hit a lot of extremely obvious glaring points that not everyone sees. And
Yeah.
Olympic recurve is definitely fly it as far as archery goes, it's crazy that it's our Olympic sport. It's our discipline in the Olympics, but it flies under the radar of popularity very much so commercially.
Yeah.
And 3D archery in America is huge.
Mhm.
Even just general indoor archery is so much more popular than outdoor target and field and stuff
Yeah.
in America. And Olympic recurve, we don't see the volume of shooters at 3D shooting Olympic recurve. We don't see them at field shoots even.
Yeah.
And I think part of it, and I don't want to say it's anyone's fault per se, but the access to information to be really good at Olympic recurve and promoting the notion of going the opportunity to represent your country to go shoot in a specific discipline has not it wasn't there. I got
Mhm.
into in America, we have JOAD programs, Junior
Yeah.
Olympic Archery Development Programs.
Yeah.
And I started with compound I started with a recurve at like 2. It's a little fiberglass recurve. Nothing.
Yeah.
But but eventually went to a compound, just shooting local paper animal things. And then by 9 or 10 years old, I had my first. It was a Hoyt Polaris. I remember it like it was yesterday. Wood 3-piece bow.
Yeah.
I had my first Olympic recurve set up, shooting for. I don't know if you remember Melanie Skillman she was on the women's team in America back in '88 in Korea.
No.
Um,
No.
I know her dad was my coach. And
Okay. Yeah.
that's how I found Olympic recurve and come to love and appreciate that type of archery. But
Mhm.
it wasn't well known. I wouldn't have known about it if we didn't go look for an archery program. That's how I
Mhm.
found it.
Yeah.
But I do wish though in some ways, and maybe in some ways the compound thing, if that does go through officially, maybe that will actually help Olympic recurve in some ways on the back end. I don't know. I just
Yeah.
just shooting at the hip a little bit on that topic. That's a whole other topic for who knows, a panel of people, the whole compound thing. But
Yeah.
shout out to Bo Junkie Media because they're doing all kinds of coverage with that right now. And
Mhm.
I will give Greg Poole credit there. He's really pushing the compound side, but that's his realm. That's where he lives.
Yeah.
So that's cool though. Moving forward in the conversation and just kind of talking about where did Crispin Duenas come from, and what age were you when like you knew the Olympics was that's the thing that you were going after?
13.
Oh,
And in my
yeah,
first year of shooting, I was like, I want to get to the Olympics. And so
incredible.
that was my like the thing at the end of the tunnel that I had to get to, right? So
Yeah,
it was always kind of a dream of mine from the start.
yeah.
And then but like figuring out what the heck I had to do to get there was also just a feat and a half, just
Well,
because like
you're already that's the segue. So you're already going down that path. So let's
yeah.
talk about that because very few 13-year-olds, myself included, shooting Olympic recurve at 13,
Yeah.
understood or was mature enough to handle, might be self-reflecting here,
Yeah.
the dedication and what sacrifices need to be made for that journey.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for you.
For me, I think it would be very different than 13-year-olds of this day. I will put that out as a big asterisk because every single kid has one of these things in their pocket now. That is a
Yeah.
super big distraction, right? And me as a high school teacher, I know that firsthand. But back then, we didn't have that distraction. I found out that like you don't just shoot arrows and start to get good at it without a whole team of people behind you and a whole plethora of other things that you have to do outside of archery. Um, so I was actually really lucky to be able to attend an athletic high school. It's a high school that had it's called Birchmount Park Collegiate Institute, and they had the BEEP program, which was Birchmount's Exceptional Athletic Program, and you had to be
Oh,
accepted
wow.
there as an athlete. And so on a whim, like I had tried getting in there as an archer. I had swimming and karate actually as other sports that I was doing at the time as well. So I was already an athletic type kid.
Yeah.
But they said, oh, it'd be really cool to have the first ever archer in the exceptional athletic program. And then they're just I think one of the things is like, what do you aspire to do and stuff like that. They want to know that when you go into this program, you're in it for the long haul and you're not just there because you play like, ultimate frisbee on the weekends.
Right.
So they asked me like, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'm aspiring to become an Olympian, and like, I think I could really use this program to help me out and learn what I need to do in order to become an Olympian. And they accepted me, which was really, really cool. And I actually still talk to my high school beep teacher up until this day. His name is Rob Packus. He's got his own fitness thing on the side as well. But this was actually another little stroke of luck, that when I got into the program, you don't just go in and you just work out and everything. That's the easy thing to do. But understanding what the workouts are doing for you, what the nutrition is doing for you, what should you do just for your sport, what do these other sports need to do? That's what that program had instilled in me. So I remember one time, one of our projects was to write up a strength workout for a hockey player, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I need to now figure out what muscles do they need to use in order to be effective at hockey. Like, what do their cardio systems need to look like? What do their endurance systems need to look like? Like, what are their do they need fast release protein or slow release protein, that type of stuff, right? And then eventually you could model it back into your own sport. And that's when I started thinking, okay, what are our goals in archery? Well, archery, like, one of the big goals is to take your bow shoulder and keep it down. Well, what muscle actually keeps your bow shoulder down? Well, that's actually this big muscle over here called the lat, right? So I went up to my coach, Joan, and I was like, hey, Joan, did you know that the lats keep your shoulders down? And she's like, oh, we've just been telling people to keep their shoulders down. And I was like, no. If we like, and I was like the kid who just discovered gold, right? I was like, oh my God, if you go into the gym and you actually do lat pull down and you do it a bunch, and you're able to engage just the lats to pull your shoulder down. And I actually, like, I told her, I think if you actually get onto the machine and you shrug your shoulders up, but when you're actually pulling down, you start by pulling your shoulders down first, and then doing the lat pull down, and then keep your shoulders down, and then let the shoulders release back up. I think that could actually strengthen your lats. And Joan was like, oh, I think you might be onto something. Okay, go do that, and we'll check back in a couple months and see how it is. And sure enough, like, that's one of the things that I was like, oh my gosh, this is how I can take the knowledge of like good kinesiology and put it into archery, just by knowing what are our goals and what are the muscles that are needed in order to achieve that. So I think that's another thing that helped me out in that respect.
It's a rare choice for a young person to really dive deep into.
Yeah. I think I might have been just an obsessed kid. I think if there was YouTube, I probably would have been watching every single archery video out there. But like, going through high school, again, I didn't have the distractions of the phones, luckily. But I did know that after school, it was like 2 or 3 nights a week, I have archery practice with Joan. And I knew that I didn't want to have to come home and have to do homework once I got home from practice. So I was one of those kids who, like, at lunchtime, I was rarely hanging out with friends, or if I was doing homework while I was sitting there in the hallways with my friends having lunch, just doing homework. And so I think that was a prioritization skill that I learned in high school of like, what do I need to do after school? Well, I need to do X, Y, Z. But if I'm going to be doing that stuff, what do I need to do during the day in order for me to get to do that stuff after school? And that's where I learned this thing called compartmentalization. So my schoolwork, I tried to do it at school. And when I was at home, I did my home stuff. And when I was at the range, I did the range stuff. And I try not to let everything weave into each other. Obviously, some days it had to, because you just can't help it sometimes. But having that ability to just be able to say, okay, I'm doing this at this time, and I have this time limit to get it finished in, I think that puts that keeps the goal setting mindset in you. I still use it to this day. Like when I'm marking papers now, I'm like, okay, I have to get through this class, and I have this much time to do it in. Like, how many questions per hour do I need to mark? It's kind of one of those things that just lived with me afterwards.
There is a carryover to the shot process, whichever shot process you shoot or form you have. But there's a carryover to that, the ability to compartmentalize a shot in some ways, in my opinion, from a coaching standpoint. and being able to do that in the right moments, not
Yes.
letting your emotions step in, but keeping yourself in that compartmentalized state of
Mhm.
I need to focus on the task at hand and not let these other outside liars influence me.
Yeah.
So it's no surprise to hear that that was something that you learned early on, unrelated to archery, but you definitely have carried a level of success that may attribute to your natural ability or a lesson learned early on outside of archery that's
Mhm.
carried over to your career. So that's pretty cool. I knew you had a fitness, I want to say, a background. Do you like have any degrees in kinesiology or anything, or is that just something that you just dove into really deeply?
I just dove into it real deep.
Okay. All
A
right.
lot of teachers think I have a phys ed teachable, like I can teach phys ed, but like for those of people who don't know me, I'm actually a high school teacher by day. I teach math and physics, but everybody thinks that I'm a phys ed teacher, and I'm like, no, I actually don't have a qualification
Man,
to teach phys ed.
I am
So
so
yeah,
glad that Larry Wise is not on this podcast with me this time, because he is a retired math teacher of like 32 years.
yeah.
And Larry's like my mentor coach,
Mhm.
from mostly the compound side, but
Yeah.
and I joke all the time because he's very organized and like, well, what do we got to do, Frank? We have to make a list, and we
Yep.
like when we talk about a podcast or a seminar or a class, or
Yeah.
so you guys would be like two peas in a pod. We would never get anything done in an episode. But anyways, so the fitness side, you still actively work out now? Like,
Yep.
are you what's like, what kind of program is it? Do you program yourself? What kind of stuff are you doing? Are you doing stuff specific to archery or just general overall health or?
Um, so I do all the programming myself. I write my own workouts. We did have a strength and conditioning coach before Tokyo. But after that, the Archery Canada started remodeling things and everything. And actually, I was like, basically, long story short, I just started writing my own stuff. And that was just based off of the things that, like I said, I figured out in high school. What do I need to work on? What do I need to focus on? What is my, it sounds very Zen like, but I don't know what it
Sure.
is, but what is my body telling me I need to do? Like, am I feeling achy in my lower back? Am I supposed to work on a little bit more core this week or whatnot? So like I will hit on certain things like consistently, but when I feel like, oh, hey, this part of my body is not actually feeling that great, let's put a little bit more focus into this one. I kind of do it on a whim like that.
As
I know
needed
it sounds a
basis,
little bit strange, but I do try to listen to my body, and I mean, and accommodate for what it's telling me. Um, Cardio is definitely big in my world now, since
Mm.
COVID hit and everything, and lots of things got shut down. My wife actually tried to learn how to run 5K, and that's when she learned that she absolutely hates running. Uh,
It sounds like my wife. My wife
yeah,
says if I'm running, you better be, somebody else better be, because I hate running.
yeah.
Uh,
So and I like going out and going on for like just a good short 5K jog, just to, like, honestly, at the end of the day after work and everything, if you just get out there with your music and you're just like peaceful,
yeah.
just going out for a jog, it's so beautiful. I love it.
Runner's high is a real thing.
It's a thing. It's a real thing. I've
Definitely a
only
thing.
experienced it a couple times, but
No.
I can
Well,
vouch for it.
5K isn't typically long enough unless you run
No.
really, really hard.
Yeah.
Like if you're pushing 22, 23 or less on a
Mhm.
5K time, like it's hard to get to
Yeah.
that state.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've done a 10K before, and I've done like 7 or 8K, and I've definitely felt it on those ones where it's like,
Yeah,
how did I end up at 10K? But okay, cool. But after my wife learned that she didn't like running, I was like, okay, let's try biking. And so we went out and got some road bikes, and we love it. So we'll go and try to. She wants to complete her first Imperial Century. She's done a metric century where she's biked 100 kilometers, but she wants to be able to bike 100 miles.
Oh wow.
So that's 160 kilometers. It'll take a little bit more training to get up to that one, but she can do 80 kilometers, no problem.
Wow.
But like once you start getting up into the triple digits, it starts to, if you're not mentally prepared for it, and if you haven't fueled up right, it starts to be a little bit more of a drag than fun at that point.
Yeah.
But like we've got some rides that we have planned for the summer if we can make it happen. But like cardio is top of my list, core is top of my list, because when you're doing this archery thing, like core is definitely key. I know that a lot of archers have started going this route, but proprioception in your ankles and your lower body is really important as well. Just having balance, not like work-life balance, but like actual balance of how you're standing is really, really important if you're going to
balance balls, those balls, stuff like that.
So I love getting to the gym and challenging my wife to just kneeling on a stability ball with no hands. It's just knees and shins on the ball basically. And she got really good at it at one point, which was really good. But that shows a really good stability in the lower abs and in your hip flexors, just to be able to stabilize on all 360 degrees around a stability ball. Some people have taken it to the extreme. I'm guilty of this one, but standing on a stability ball while doing an exercise like squats or shooting a bow while standing on a stability ball, that's next level. Some people would argue that there's no real benefit of doing that one. I could see the pros and cons of no benefit and lots of benefit, but you have to think about the ability of the person who's getting up there. Like, are they actually going to benefit from this, or is this just a circus show at that point, right?
Dick Tone, I'm sure you're familiar with Dick. He's a good friend of mine. I took his seminar some time ago at Lancaster, and that was one of the things he talked about during his seminar. He brought out the balance balls and then the Bosa ball, and I did shoot on it. I shot shooting barebow and shot well. It was good. But I'm also I have an athletic background, so I'm not just just an archery guy. But and I definitely think it works. If nothing else, for the coaches out there that listen to this, for JOAD teams, they're stupid inexpensive, and the kids love shooting on them. So go get yourself some balance balls and just get like a dozen of them, and you can have them all shoot at the same time. They will enjoy it, and it's good for them. It is. I think there is definitely carryover though to the stability from the feet through the ankles specifically, because you definitely use muscles in the feet when on the balance balls that you would not normally use. And if you can learn to engage those, kind of like the idea of the lat pull downs, and learning to engage those muscles, it will be easier to really truly get into your back and be stabilized properly at full draw. So I think that's some really good stuff, because there's not enough archers really take fitness seriously in my opinion.
I completely agree. We used to actually have fitness testing on the Canadian team.
Really?
To get funding to get onto certain teams. There used to be fitness testing. I know Team Germany still implements that. They still have fitness to get onto their teams as well as good shooting.
Does Canada have any stipends or assistance for actual athletes, like, at all?
So we have this program called carding. So if you're a carded athlete, you basically are getting tax-free money from the government for training. It's not enough to live off of, but it's a good enough amount that you're not, like, if you're on a training like budget, you can make all of that stuff work. So that's how, like, for funding to get your card, if you were a potential carded athlete, you had to complete certain fitness tests. This was like oh my gosh, 4 or 5 years ago. They've since Archery Canada has since taken that away, but we used to have I think everybody knows this one, the beep test, the shuttle run. So we used to actually, for the men, had to get at least level 9 to get our funding.
Wow.
Wow. So my Joan, my coach, who used to run the high performance program, actually had implemented all of these things, because when they were trying to develop more higher level archers, and I'm gonna sound so big headed at this point, but I'm just telling the facts as it is. She said, "Why is Crispin shooting better than like the next person? What is separating him from everybody else?" And she said, "Well, he's fit and he does other sports." okay, so how can we start to do that and start to implement it? So we actually had this battery of tests that archers had to do, and the results were all based off of the results that I got on these tests. So there was like a plank hold, there was like a front plank hold, the side plank holds. There was the beep test or the shuttle run. There was a V-sit hold. There was this dumbbell, like an elevated bench where you lay on your stomach and it's longer than an arm length, and we were pulling on a dumbbell up and down, but we're doing it to a metronome set to 60 beats per minute. So on one tick you pull up, on the next tick you let down, and then the one tick you pull up. So it just showed like a rhythmic pulling of that. And if you could last past 30 at for the men it was 50 pounds, and for the women it was 40-pound dumbbells. If you could last past 30 reps, you were good. Like, yeah, there were so many tests. We had a grip strength test too. And that was not for like holding onto the string or anything. That was just basically, it was kind of a coach's way of knowing how much you actually had gone to the gym. Because when you're picking up and putting down dumbbells a lot, your grip strength actually goes up. So so that was just another one of the small tests. But those tests have all since been disbanded. But yeah, that was a thing. And I think that like I hate to sound preachy, but I think archers would be so much better if they were athletes. Like, especially if you know the type of conditions you're going to be in at a USAT, for example. Like, think about when was the last time you went to a US Nationals or a USAT event and you were not on the field for the majority of the day?
Yeah.
Right. And what happens when you're at, like, let's say Buckeye in Ohio, and we get that lightning that always hits right in the middle, right? And now you gotta
to Jason who runs that.
Yeah. Like it's
right,
one of those
though.
things.
Yep.
You have to be fit in order to deal with that type of stuff. If you're not fit and you're constantly going up and shooting and then stopping and then maybe stopping for a little bit longer and then going up and shooting and everything, that actually is taking a little bit more of a hit on your body than if you were a little bit more fit. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to go out and be the next American Ninja Warrior, right? You don't need to be that. You just need to be a little bit more. You need to realize that this is a sport. It's in the Olympics. So you just need to put a little bit more into it. And to be honest, once you get a little bit more fit, you feel better, and like you do better when you're actually shooting. And if you're going to be doing better, you're going to want to do it more, because you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm shooting in the middle. I want to keep on practicing. And then that's going to just have this positive effect on you, and just keep it snowballing.
I think there's something to be said for your confidence as a shooter and your mental game when you are fit. Like when you have, I've definitely shot my best archer when I was in the best shape of, like, there's a confidence level that goes with knowing like you're at the it's so cliche, at the peak of the best version of yourself at that moment. Like that's what you're at. I'm a big fan of barbells. I like to move barbells, snatch, clean and jerk, back squat, front squat. That's my bread and butter of fitness. Like I will run. I play basketball 3 days a week, but I'm not trying to run a 10K. I'm not gonna lie. I'm 6'3", 250 pounds. I'm a big dude. I don't want to do stuff. I literally would rather just lift barbells and pull-ups and push-ups and stuff like that. But and also maybe a testament to you mentioned about grip strength before. There is a relationship to archery when you are barbells, deadlift, back squat, whatever it is that you're doing, snatch, clean and jerk, whether just powers or whatever, kettlebell swings, dumbbell work. When you have that grip strength, forearm strength, shoulders, that carries over to your ability to be stabilized at full draw, period. I think it's not a small detail. It's a big detail. And for some reason, so many archers just bypass it. And I don't know if it's a time thing. They think, well, I have to shoot, a gabillion arrows a week to be good, or or maybe it's a matter of knowledge. How do I juggle a fitness regime and an archery practice regime? So maybe that's the segue for us. Like, once again, where do those two come together? And what does that look like for you? Because you are so fitness minded.
Yeah.
Where does that happen? Where do those two intersect, and how do you manage both of them?
So you have to be able to know like where you are in your season for what you're going to be doing in the gym. But the more time you spend in the gym, the more normalized what you're doing in the gym becomes.
Sure.
So it's not going to be a special thing if you've done, like, let's say, like this is the hard one, when you do an arms day or an upper body day and you have shooting the next day. That's always the big one for archers, and that's what a lot of people try to avoid, because they know that their shooting the next day is probably not going to be the best, because they've like torn and just worked all of the upper body muscles. But
Right.
the more you do it, the more normalized becomes, and the more used to it you're going to be able to be. So when you first start out with your workout regime, like, I think anybody who's actually just starting from like zero, from absolutely nothing,
Yeah.
if you just planked for 5 minutes before bed every night, you'll see actual results overall in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I've had in as short as 2 weeks. I'm not going to be guaranteeing buy two now and get one free, but like, I've had people where I've said, like, hey, if you just plank, the muscles, like the stability core muscles that are going to be engaged there, are going to be working. You have legs. You have to have flexed quads in order to keep your legs straight. There's no doubt about it. You have to. So you're actually working your legs out at the same time. Depending on, sorry.
Such a good point. But
Yeah, it's a full body thing. Where your shoulders are going to be. Like, are you going to be doing like an extended plank? Are you going to be doing just like a normal plank where your elbow is like right underneath your shoulder? Are you up on your in a push-up position type thing? Like, it doesn't even matter, because you're actually using shoulder stability muscles at that point, right? And then suddenly, if I say 5-minute plank, everybody's going to be like, oh my God, that's so long. But you do it for about a week or two, and you're like, oh, 5 minutes. I can actually plug that off in just one go, and then just brush my teeth and go to bed.
Yeah.
But you don't even have to just stay on the front. You can actually rotate off to the side. But that motion of rotating is actually like helping to train your rotator cuff and keep it strong in under like an underload motion of rotating from here to here and then other side and back, right? So that's where you can start. You don't even have to get to the gym. But once you do get to the gym, if you start off with like 2 days a week, like once during the weekdays and once on the weekend, I think that's absolutely great. I mean, it's better than nothing. And you don't have to be a pro at it. You just, like, there's a whole, like, every gym out there has the machines, and the machines have instructions on them. So if you can just go up and you just just bite the bullet and get onto a machine of like the muscles that you want to work, right? It's going to show you how to do it. And chances are, if you're doing it wrong, somebody from the gym is going to come over, hopefully a staff member, not a creepy person who's, not even sweating. But if a gym staff person comes over and says, hey, like, actually, you should probably be pushing it this way and have your elbows at this position or whatnot, right? Then you've just learned something. And you can easily take that over into dumbbell work or barbell work once you start getting more advanced.
There's tons of opportunities to go on YouTube and find some of like, there's just so many options. I mean, I definitely am a CrossFit style. Like, I like that world, and I know a bunch of personalities within that world. But you don't have to do CrossFit. You can just do regular HIIT or Tabatas or whatever. But there's so many workout options, just like YouTube. Even if it was a half of a Tabata, if you're like somebody that's new and you need a scaled something simple, like, you easily could have a body weight, four exercises, only 8 rounds each at 20 seconds of work with 10-second rest. You could do that just to start. And it could be something as simple as jumping jacks or jump rope or air squats or planks and sit-ups or whatever. Like, you can just do something so simple just to get started. And it's gonna carry over to your archery. It's gonna carry over to your life, in period.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad that that's been such a important aspect to your career, and that your willingness to put it out there and talk about it. But with that being said, let's talk about your archery training, because what does that look like for you? Let's say leading up to like a major tournament or your Olympic trials or the Olympics in general. what does that look like for you in regards to volume, days? What kind of things are you doing to prepare and get yourself to where you need to be?
Like before the last Olympics, we actually had my program down to a really good periodization where I would start peaking volume at a certain amount of time, weeks out before a major, and then I would start to bring the volume back down, but then start to score a lot more. So we had this graph of volume and intensity. So intensity is scoring and match prep and 720 prep and everything, and volume is clearly just volume. But when it was like this, you had high volume and low intensity, but most of the time they would actually just do this. So when intensity goes up, the volume almost goes down, and then it would just do this. And some days we would actually bring both of them a little bit higher, but maybe both of them a little bit lower at the same time. So everybody's going to be a little bit different. My program had me starting to raise volume at about 4 weeks out.
Yep.
And that's when we really saw some good results. You could also push yourself and find out, I can't say for everybody that this plan is going to work, but you can figure out what will work for you. One thing that we did was just stress me out for as long as I possibly could handle it and find out how long I lasted. And so we discovered that me under scoring stress at every single practice, and scoring stress would be like scoring but with either a penalty or a reward or something on it, or something like that. My general ability to last was about 6 weeks under intense mental load. I remember there's one exercise that we did, and it's not for everybody, but we were shooting. I went to practice, and my sports psych had told me that if I shoot any ends underneath 55 at 70 meters, I go home. It could be the first end. Well, actually, no, he said 2 ends to get sighted and everything. But then after that, any ends under 55 out of 60, I pack up and I leave. Right. And I was like, oh my God, that is so stressful, because the range that I was going to was about a 45 to an hour drive away.
Oh gosh.
That was a rough one, because I think I lasted 8 ends.
Wow.
And you have no idea how stressful that is when you're already 4 weeks deep into this stressing exercise. But everybody will have their own stress that they can tolerate and everything. So figure out what your stress levels are, and then make sure that you can keep yourself within that time frame for when you go to a major event. You should also be wary of what your physical exercise is looking like. So you don't want to stress your body out too much before a competition as well. So that's another a tapering thing that we actually call it now. So you can be doing your usual everyday normal exercises and everything, but then about a week out from competition, you can start to bring everything down just a level, just a bit. You don't have to go down to 0, but you can maybe, instead of doing 16 reps of an exercise, now you're only doing about 8 to 12 of the same weight that you do at 16, but 8 to 12, right? Yeah. So that's just a taper. That's letting your muscles just not get too tired before going away for competition. And so that's, I think, an important thing that you should definitely consider when your physical training is intertwined with your archery career as well. And a lot of other archers out there, like I said, Team Germany has a big fitness component. Team Netherlands, they're probably going to be doing the same thing. They're still working out, but they're not working out as intensely as every day.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up periodization. I've spoken about that many times on the Barebow project specifically, but and it's something I learned in actually Olympic weightlifting. That's where I learned periodization and understanding what it was, because there's no way that I would be able to, for example, I'm not going to snatch a 1 rep max every single day at the gym. I'm not going to do it. And it's essentially the same as shooting for score every single day, and there's a consequence to it. That's essentially what that would be. You can't do that. There's no way that physically and mentally your body can handle that completely. Mm-hmm. So then, I learned the aspect of periodization through my body. I'm kicking the crap out of my body. Why is it that I can snatch 100 kilos when I'm at my best, but just because I did it in the beginning, why can't I do it all the time? It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Especially when you're lifting heavy, 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 heavy. But and with that being said, something I've noticed programming for shooters is on the periodization side. I've noticed, and then maybe you can relate, maybe you can't. In the beginning, it's good, high volume, everything's great. Week 4, counting backwards. Week 3 sucks. Scores go down. You feel like poop. You're beat down. And then the start of week 2, so this is 2 weeks out from your competition, you start to feel really good. And then like scores start climbing back up. You feel like you want to shoot more. You almost have to hold yourself back. And then week 1, you're raring to go. You're like, everything's flowing. Everything feels good. You want to shoot more, but you almost have. Now, not everybody, like Demmer, my buddy Demmer, that guy just shoots volume, and he shoots and shoots and shoots and shoots. He also runs a business, so he shoots when he can shoot, and then he doesn't when he doesn't, and he's just got to get it all in. But I've also watched that guy, like before the last Lancaster Classic, like I watched, like he'll just shoot arrow, leave qualifications, go to the practice range, shoot, 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 shoot. But he's also like, listen, either I got it or I don't, but I'm gonna keep shooting and keep trying. You know what I mean? But no, that's great stuff. It's so, I think there's so much more that we could probably unpack about, like, within your training and stuff like that. But I mean, we've covered a lot, and we're losing some light. I can see in the background.
I can actually turn a light on, so I can, give me 1 second. I'll turn
Go
a light
ahead,
on.
go ahead. You can pop it on quick. Hey, look at that. You were on a roll, so I didn't want to stop and say anything. I can
All right, that's a
edit
lot
what
better.
I need to. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
But no, it's good to hear that, someone like yourself, like this is all in your conscious mind. This is stuff that you're thinking about, you're preparing for, and you're gonna find now that you're wearing a coaching hat. This is where this has been one of my biggest struggles. From shooting barebow and being a pretty decent level barebow competitor, and then I dove into coaching really hard. Multiple athletes, running my own training center, running my own program, doing the podcast, the compartmentalization of coaching and shooting, everything comes together, and it's very difficult to separate those things. That's been one of my biggest drawbacks to my shooting career is coaching. I don't know how people that do both at a high level, I don't know how they do it. I'm not gonna lie, it is so difficult to do. So save the extreme amounts of coaching until you're done competing.
Which is why I have one athlete.
I have one that I'm working with now remotely. And there's a handful that I'm sort of on hiatus from coaching at all because I'm on a medical leave per se, from anything archery related. And I don't know if I want to. I will tell you, I'm getting back into. I want to shoot. I want to enjoy competing again. And while coaching, I did not enjoy it because my mind was always someplace else, worrying about what are they doing, what should they be doing, what aren't they doing, and stuff like that. But I'm not gonna lie, I would like to get into, and I think we will, if you're cool with it, we'll do a part 2. I really want to get into your shot process and your form because I love the fact, and it's something that I relate to, the notion of like, make your form and do it with a purpose and make it yours and do it right. And there's aspects of your form. I've seen multiple videos of you shooting. I've watched you shoot the classic many times unknowingly. Don't worry, I'm not a stalker, I promise.
That's okay.
But there's things that you do that I find, what's the word? There's characteristics of your shot that I advocate for as a coach, and I want to know why you do them. And the deep hook and all that stuff is part of it. But that, again, I think that's going to be a separate episode. We're going to talk about shot process and form for Olympic recurve, what you do and how you do it. How's that sound?
I think that sounds great. I'm like there's no secrets to archery.
No,
I hate to break it to everybody out there. There's no this like magic golden ticket that once you get handed it, you're going to be like this amazing shooter. It doesn't happen overnight. You got to do it, but you got to figure out what all the good guys out there are doing. And if you talk to the guys who are like, for example, like me, who has their own shot. I've made my own shot from 23 years of just doing what I felt was right and what I knew worked for me. People can probably figure out and say, oh, hey, oh my God, that part of your shot is actually something that that I can use. We actually had an aha moment with me and my student just yesterday or the day before, either way. I was like, hey, try this. And it's like completely something opposite to what a lot of people think. But she was like, oh my gosh, that feels way better. And I was like, okay, cool. It's completely opposite to what everybody else is doing, but I know it feels good and I know it's relaxed. So let's keep on doing it. And then she shot a PB. So yeah.
Can't argue with stats, man.
Yeah.
You can't argue with stats. If the stats show that it works, it you know, especially repeatedly works.
Yes.
You can't argue that point. I don't care whose system you shoot. I don't care what you're, you know, you can't argue with cold, hard scores and scores that work, and especially work when it matters the most.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
what I try to that's sort of like my approach to coaching and teaching shot process and form. I'm a USA Archery level 4 NTS coach. I'm not going to lie. From Barebow side, I utilize terms of the NTS. I don't really teach the NTS because the one thing that I have found that NTS is great for kids from 13 to like their late 20s and adults into their 20s. It works in that time frame. But you take like I don't know, I got a lot of 30, 40, 50-year-old barebow shooters that don't have the mobility to be able to implement all of those different aspects. And I also think the barebow shot without a clicker requires a little bit of a different approach. So, you know, but anyways, that's a whole other episode. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. We've gone long enough.
Yeah.
Crispin, where can people follow you, find you? Who are the people that have helped you get to where you're at? And let's finish with that.
Okay. Well, like the most active thing that I've got going for right now is my Instagram account. It's just Crispin_Duenas. So you can find me on Insta there. There's I actually have a Facebook athlete profile as well. I haven't posted much there just because Instagram just took over and I was able to post more stuff there, but I should get better at that one. But if you can search up Crispin Duenas athlete, you'll find me on Facebook as well. But I know it's only, according to my high school kids, only old people have Facebook now. So yeah, so the Instagram thing is the and you have no idea how much clout I get with my kids once they figure out that there's a blue check mark beside my name on Instagram. It's hilarious.
Yeah. You're verified.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, that's the main one that you can follow me on is the Instagram. My sponsors, oh my gosh, there's so many companies that have helped me out throughout the years, and I appreciate every single one of them. I try not to burn any bridges. I don't think I've burned any bridges at all. My love to all of them. Hoyt and Easton have been with me since 2005. Excel and Trueball Excel is my sights. Stabilizers right now is Conquest. Biter, oh my gosh, those guys at Biter make an amazing product. I tell people that's the BMW of archery because it's the German stuff, but yeah. BCY fibers are my strings that I use. Shibuya Arrow Rest, Shibuya Bow Stand, Angel Quiver. I am part of the OG crowd who still uses spin wings, so Range-O-Matic. So I've just found that they give me the best results from any fletching that I've tested so far. Speaking of OG, the AAE Elite Finger Tab, that is the original Dictone design. I've tried other finger tabs and I always keep coming back to my favorite, which is the AAE Elite Tab. Oh my gosh, what else?
When I shot Olympic, I have to rephrase that. When I shot Olympic, that's what I shot. I shoot a Yoast tab now for Barebow, but
okay, yeah. But well, to each their own.
No, I just I kind of misspoke. I was like, when I shot an Olympic recurve, I shot the AE Gold the last time, but I shot the original Cavalier tab is what I used when I started decades ago at this point.
Yeah.
Showing my age.
Cavalier.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Jaeger grip. Can't forget about Jaeger
Paul
grip.
Jaeger,
Paul Jaeger. He's a good friend, a good buddy. And he makes an amazing product that in my opinion, I love the fact that it's so repeatable. And you don't need to use a consumable tennis wrap on it. You can still use that if you so choose to do so, but he's a very understanding and willing person to work with you in whatever you like, colors you need or small little tweaks or whatnot. He's an amazing guy. I think that's about it. The custom made wraps for arrow wraps on my arrows. Like I've so there's, I mean, again, I can't say enough appreciation to all of those people who have helped me out.
Well, listen, this is an opportunity for you, and if you missed any, let me know. I'll add it in the show. But it's a good opportunity for you to show that appreciation, so people learn who are the ones that are supporting people like yourself, so you can continue to be competitive. And it is important. Free gear is free gear. I don't care what anybody says. That's thousands.
Lancaster Archery.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Rob, he is the man. So I mean, Lancaster
that makes a world of difference. That's thousands of dollars that you save so that you can go compete and represent that company. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Not just free stuff, people. It's literally allowing you to do more tournaments or more travel or whatever.
Yeah.
But all right, man. Thank you so much for taking your time out. It's Memorial Day weekend, so I know it's kind of tough to get away, but I appreciate your dedication to the sport, the willingness to talk about it. And it sounds like we're gonna have to plan a part 2.
I am looking forward to a part 2. I think that'd be a great idea.
All right, man. Perfect.